Hey everybody, welcome back. So I think I mentioned in the last video that I wasn't going to be covering a lot of the other quarter panel installation since we covered it on this one, pretty much same thing. Um, and I'm not going to cover a lot in this video, but for different reasons. There were some issues that I'll show you coming up here in the video. But what we're going to do is there's a lot of little different parts that are dented and stuff that we'll work on some of them and get them straightened out, and then look at the passenger door and try to get that stuff all ready to go so we can get this thing in some primer. So I'll get on with it, and then we'll come back at the end and see what we got finished. Well, I got the right side cut off with the plasma. I'm actually going to say this side was worse. Up in here, there was probably a good ½ inch of Bondo, and there's a few spots here where they had drilled through. And this is dished in, so I'll have to do some work on that before we weld the new one on. I already started cutting some of this out, but yeah, like down here, they didn't even attach this when they just stuck that piece of metal over the top and ran this around to the quarter panel. I didn't even weld it to the inner structure. So yeah, it's kind of hacked up stuff, but yeah, it's bad all the way around, so there was just no getting around it. All needs to be replaced, but I do think I'm going to stay up about 1 inch this time, and then probably 1.5 inches from the edge here, and same up here, probably probably about 1 inch or so up here where I'll put my seam. I'm still trying to decide back here. This is pretty rough where they've drilled and hammered and pulled it out, but this section here is looking really good. I'll run the stripper over just to make sure, but I think we're good here. So I kind of want to leave that, and then maybe just come down in here and then curve into this. Something like that. This kind of evolves as we go, but otherwise, yeah, it's kind of the same thing. This is going to have to be repaired. Down in the rocker here is going to have to be repaired. But otherwise, everything else inside looks good. So, all right. I'm not going to show a whole lot on this side because it's kind of the same as the last side. Probably just, unless I find something else that's really drastic or something, I'll probably just wait till it's finished. So, all right, I'm going to get back at it. See you in a bit. So this is a good example of why I like to clean out all that undercoat, that seam sealer the factory put in. You can see how thick it was here, and underneath is all rusty. Granted, this is the spot where I expect it to be rusted out completely because so much water sits in there. With a convertible, you've got a drain coming from up top down through here. There's a plastic drain channel that runs around where the top attaches in the back by the back window, and then all that water runs down in through here and then has to drain out through those two little holes and down into the inner rocker and then out through a little drain hole. So it's got kind of a ways to try to get there, and obviously it's going to puddle up in there and you get a little dirt inside there too, and it's going to hold that moisture in there. But yeah, so if you leave that, it looks like it's all good, thick, still protected, and it's not. It's rust underneath. So I'm going to take all that stuff out. Like I said, this side seems to actually be a little bit worse, but kind of having to do the same thing here I did on the other side. Just take off the end here. We'll rebuild all this, and we'll condition all this in here with some rust conditioner, clean it up as best we can first, and should be good to go. So the fact that this is so messed up They've done a lot of welding in here, and it's all pushed apart. And then this whole thing was, they just put a piece of metal from the back side and welded it in over the top, most of the rust. I really don't have a lot to go by here to make the piece I need from here down. So what I've done is come over here and actually made the piece to fit right to the replacement quarter panel. So that's this here. Came out pretty darn good. And even with as messed up as this is, it does match in pretty well. Fits all the curves. So now I can cut this out, and then I'm going to have to probably cut this out from here, or actually from like here down, and make this back piece, then weld this to that piece, and then work on this. So yeah, it's just making piece after piece. But yeah, this side is definitely a little worse, so I'm glad I decided just to cut the whole thing out and do it right. I'm getting this quarter panel fitted to the car. It's going all right. Like I showed you earlier how I cut around it. Still had to make some tweaks because it was sitting up on top of the old quarter panel. So now I bent these tabs here so it sits down flush. But it is not fitting as well as the other side did, the driver's side. I mean, it's pretty good, but it's just a little more springy, where the other one just laid right on. And right here, I'm having some issues getting this to line up like it should. But the major son of a bitch was I happened to notice the louvers here they're barely even there. You can't hardly even, I don't know if you can even really see them at all in the video. I guess a little bit there. But yeah, there's almost nothing there. Now, when I did the other side, I had taken my profile gauge and checked the depth of these on that quarter panel to this side of the factory quarter panel, because this side was the best for the factory shape. And I never even thought to check this side. So now what I'm going to try to do, since I'm already this far, is I've cut out this out of that old quarter panel I skinned, and we'll try, sorry about all the moving here, graft that in, cut out the old, or cut out the new and put in the old. So yeah, I had to pull the quarter panel back off, and then I'm actually going to try laying this down on the inside. I think there's just enough of these to kind of give me the position, so I can get the position right. And I'll trace it out on the inside of the quarter panel. I'm going to try to cut it just as tight as possible, because I'd really like to TIG weld these in. I'm kind of a rookie at the TIG, but it's just going to allow me to hammer and dolly this and try not to get any warpage, after it's all hammered and dollied out. So yeah, that'll be the plan. Otherwise, if this fails, I have to buy another quarter panel, which kind of sucks. But what do you do? These just came with the car, and I have no idea where they came from. I'm thinking they were probably like a Certifit or something. But all right, I'm going to get this quarter panel pulled off and get this laid on it and see how it looks from the other side. So I'm waiting for some die chem to show up so I can stain this with the die chem and then fit this into its spot, which seems to be right about there. and then scribe it so I can cut it out, try welding it in. Hopefully it'll go well. But in the meantime, I decided I'd look at some of these other parts of the car and take out some dents. So this is the front lower valance. You can see it's all been caved in here, and then they drilled it and bondoed it to try and make it look good. So we'll get that, get all that mud out of there. It's got to be at least a 1/2 inch thick from what I'm feeling. We'll get that dent worked out. There's a couple other little ones. Otherwise, it's in good shape. You know, all the front end parts are really, really solid and good. So this front upper header panel, this was all caved in right here. Got that out pretty well. So yeah, I'm just going to keep looking over parts, trying to find areas that need to be straightened before we send it to the blaster and get them fixed up before we blast it. So we get it back, it'll be ready to sand down, mud, and start blocking. Looks like this is puckered out here too. I just had to show this. So it's probably at least 3/4 of an inch thick. You know, why they even bother drilling the holes? You know, normally you drill it to try to put a puller on there, a slide hammer, and pull the dent out, but they might as well have just filled it. I don't think they pulled anything out. But this is pretty heavy metal, and maybe that's what they tried and it wouldn't pull out. So rather than take the panel off and hammer it out like they should have done, just fill her up. So it was pretty full. Yeah, I started using the disc to sand it off, and it was just taking way too long. So I'm just actually heating it up with a torch a little bit and digging it out with a putty knife. But yeah, that's not the way you want to do it, and that's not the way we're going to do it. So we'll get this all dug out and see if we can get it hammered out the way it should be. Well, with it all stripped out, here's what we got. Yeah, she's pretty deep. And here's all them holes. Have to get this hammered out, and then we'll weld all them shut. Seems pretty good in here. So right from here, we'll have to just work and straighten this out all across, starting from over in here. Bottom here is pretty messed up too. I'll have to try and straighten this line out across here. But yeah, I'll get to the beating on it, and I'll come back and see how it looks. Well, after about, I don't know, maybe hour 45 minutes, 2 hours, something like that, that's what we got. Get the dent pretty well hammered out. I mean, it's still little waves in there, but it would be ready right now just for a skim coat of mud. This line here is still a little wonky. Now I debated putting it in the bead roller to try to see if I can fix that, and I might still do that after it's stripped down. But for now, I think that's pretty good. The holes are all welded in. Got the main dent out. You know, on the back side, you can still kind of see where the holes were. But yeah, it's a whole lot better than what it was. So it's as good as we need to get it now. And like I say, we might work on a little more after we get it. You know, after the car is primed and everything, we'll start reassembling the car, gapping everything, and we'll put this on the car just to make sure these lines all line up. You know, we'll build the whole car before we paint it. But yep, getting there. Just keep finding imperfections and fixing them, and eventually we'll have a good looking car. Well, I wasn't going to do a lot of video on this quarter panel, but just a little update here. So, you know, I had to cut this out of the factory quarter panel that was on the car and weld it into this one because these gills weren't even stamped. There were just barely any representation of them there. And then the doggone thing just wasn't fitting right. You can see how many clamps I've got in this thing and trying to hold it on to get it to line up. And you know, the other one did like it should. It just kind of laid on there. You don't really want a lot of tension in the panels when you weld them on. You shouldn't have to, you know, press in and weld and press and weld. It should lay where it needs to be. And I finally noticed what was going on. So if you take this straight edge across here, and see how there is no light from this ridge to here. It should dip in and come back out. It's completely flat. I can show you that over on this side. Switch angles here. So there you can see the daylight in there. That's the shape you want. So that quarter panel was just completely misstamped. So it's unusable. I've ordered up another quarter panel, and you know, on this one, on the other side, I welded it up on the top here, and on this one, kind of wanted to go down here to give me the ability to get in easier and hammer and dolly. But now it looks like I'm going to have to go back to the top because I need to trim the other quarter panel, attach that to the car, and then use that to scribe my new line. And I mean, I could go up, just to go up a little farther here, but I like the way that one came out. You know, I like to leave the factory body lines alone, but that one came out nice. So I think we'll do the same on this side. And it completely hides the seam from when you look inside the trunk. You can't see the weld seam at all. So we're going to go with the same method there. You know, we'll go up top here, kind of split it down the middle here. Yeah, just repeat what we did on that side. Now, another thing, so while I'm waiting for that quarter panel to come, this was the door panel I think I showed you earlier that had been dented, and they mudded it, and there's drilled holes through it. So there's probably 100 holes drilled into this area, and that's a good quarter, half-inch bondo on here. Kind of thinking that's why I stripped this section down. Kind of thinking about trying to work this out and save the original skin, but just to strip all this bondo off, and then it's really thick undercoat on the inside. Strip all that off so I can hammer and dolly and work on it. Just ain't worth it. So I did order up another door skin, which kind of was the original plan. So I'm gonna take grinder and grind down the edges here so I can peel this panel off, and then the new one should be in tomorrow, and we'll get that folded over and welded on. Now the door skin came in for the passenger side. Looks pretty decent. That's the yeah, the lines look pretty crisp. I haven't tried slipping it on the door yet to check the fitment, because when I took the factory door skin off, I left this piece here on the door, and I cut these spots here. So I'm thinking of removing this piece and sticking with this factory one here. I just like the fact that it's original factory piece, and it actually feels like it's a heavier gauge metal than what the reproduction is here. I'll measure it with a caliper, but you know, as much of the factory stuff I can use as possible, I like to stick with that. So that we'll see, but I think I'm going to probably stick with that piece on there. You know, it keeps the door shell just exactly as it came from the factory. So all right, well, I think I'm going to probably end the video here. I did start getting the other parts onto stands. Got the fenders mounted on here. And this is the way I like to paint them, so they're oriented just like they will be on the car, especially with your metallic paints. I got the deck lid, kind of getting dark in this room here. Got the deck lid mounted on a little old engine stand here so I can rotate it around. And get at it really nice. And when I take it to the blaster, they can use it on there. I'll do the same with the hood on a little better stand. So yeah, we're pretty darn close to getting this stuff off, and then things will start moving real quick. So, all right, like I said, end the video here. Thanks for watching. Hope you stayed till the end. Hope you enjoyed it, learned something, whatever. Have a good one, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.